Hi, everyone. We're with Jason Shivuli today. Hi, Jason. Thank you
Hello, how
for
are
coming.
you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
So, Jason is a Canadian national, a Toronto resident, a political commentator that publishes in news outlets like Israel Hayom, Israel Today, Jewish News Syndicate, Allgemeine, and also in the past few years at Jerusalem Post. And Jason is a Zionist Jew, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
100%.
Yes. So, Jason, today I would like to discuss with you the implications of possible U.S. total withdrawal from Syria. Looks like it has already moved lots of pieces on the map. Uh, Israel is obviously very much concerned about its safety, especially with the fear of the Sharia, or let's say Al Qaeda supporters, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham,
Yeah,
basically led by al-Jolani, coming close to Israel with its forces.
yeah.
Do you want to
And
comment a
Israel
little
has
bit on
taken,
that?
yeah, no, Israel has taken, as you probably know, Israel's taken a number of military actions to safeguard its own its own security from the new regime and from other threats. Israel has pretty much laid waste to most of Syria's heavy weapons. Um, and we've also the ethnic and religious minorities in Syria, unfortunately, have come under attack. Israel recently launched an airstrike to try and protect the Druze minority in southern Syria and in a suburb of Damascus most recently. And Israel's made it clear that attacks against the Druze minority will not be tolerated. I really wish they were as upfront and as active protecting the Kurdish minority in the Northeast, although that's really much more difficult because you run into problems with the Turks, and the Turkey is of course a NATO member, and of course the U.S. presence in northeast Syria has served as a buffer between the Kurds and Turkey and their own proxies in Syria. And it's in the interests of both the Kurds and Israel for that buffer to remain in place. Now, mind you, President Trump has not authorized the removal of all U.S. troops from Syria, but the troop presence in Syria is going to be knocked down to below 1,000. So that's pretty worrisome. At one point, it was 2,000 U.S. troops, especially because they were used to root out ISIS and assist the Kurds in rooting out ISIS. And actually, a couple of experts are warning now that a U.S. troop withdrawal from northeast Syria could enable a resurgence of ISIS in the area. And certainly the Kurds don't want that, and certainly Israel doesn't want that.
Yeah. So what? So it's the way I look at Israel. Israel is directly intervening when it comes to the Druze. Well,
Yes,
that's direct.
absolutely, yeah,
Actually, this is about the geographical positioning of the Druze and their alienation from the rest of the Muslim communities
that's correct.
that
Yeah,
that allows Israel to intervene directly, right?
yeah,
But I'm like, it doesn't happen the same. And then there's obviously there's no logistical disconnect between Israel and the Druze community. There's continuity from Golan Heights
yeah,
covering all the Druze area, right?
yep.
And the Druze community, they are obviously fearful of the Islamists
Yes,
because they're
absolutely,
right. So
absolutely.
yes. So, but do you know if there is because I'm reading different sources. One thing that I'm hearing is that not all the Druze are in favor of Israel
That's correct.
intervening.
No,
Yeah.
there are some Druze that don't favor Israel's intervention in Syria, and they would prefer to be united with the Syrian government, and that's fine. I can totally understand the Druze or anybody in Syria being apprehensive about greater Israeli involvement in Syria. But I would say that I'm not on the ground there. I don't have their interests, and it's easy for me to from where I am to say what I think is in the best interest of the Druze. But I think when push comes to shove, I don't think the new Syrian regime really cares about the concerns of the Druze. Though I will mention one small possibility. There has been a couple of well, there was at least one or two congressmen that visited with al-Jilani and this I can't remember their names or his name if it was just one or two people. Jilani possibly expressed interest in peace with Israel, although I'd be highly skeptical about that. But in any case, if even if there's a remote possibility, one condition that I'm sure Israel will insist on is protection for the Druze community. Or at least I sincerely hope that would be one of Israel's conditions, and I would hope also that they extend that to the Kurdish community in the northeast.
Yeah. So when it comes to the Druze, I think Israel, the state is very clear that this is the Israeli influence zone, and there's not going to be any other party coming close to Israel.
That's correct.
Yeah. If there's going to be arms there, it's going to be under authorization of the Israeli government. I think.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
Israel's has pretty much made clear that southern Syria, especially southern Syria, since it's obviously next to Israel, and Israel can't afford to have any military threat on their border, Israel's made it clear that arms won't be tolerated in southern Syria, and that if arms are found in Syria, the Israeli military will respond accordingly.
Correct. So, how about the Alawite? I know I want to talk to Kurds, my people, but how about the Alawites? We don't hear much about them.
It's very disturbing what's happening to the Alawites in northwestern Syria now. In the region of the Alawites, mostly inhabit the region of Latakia, which is the coastal region of Syria in the northwest. Now, at least I know that at least hundreds have been killed in attacks by allies of the new regime in Latakia. And I just read something recently, just maybe a few minutes before we started, that Alawites are being forced out of their homes and given a few moments basically to leave. They're basically expelled at gunpoint.
Yeah, but Israel cannot do much, no? Because first of all,
not really. Like, Israel is stretched pretty thin. The other thing is that because Assad himself was an Alawite, and it was an Alawite regime pretty much that ruled Syria, there's not much compassion I'll tell you the honest truth. There's not much compassion, I don't think, for the Alawites in Israel, especially especially with the dictatorship there that ruled for several decades being dominated by the Alawites.
Yeah.
So I don't think Israel. I would like somebody to protect the Alawites. Unfortunately, but I don't think it's going to be Israel. I don't think Israel will act there at all.
Well, at the same time, Israel is not the police of the region. Of course not. No. Israel is there for Israel, obviously.
That's right. That's right.
And I think Israel's security overcomes every other option, right? So, but I think what I'm trying to discuss, like, we're talking about the Islamists that are now in charge of Damascus, right?
Yeah.
But we cannot really talk about Syria. What united Syria was an Arab nationalist ideology.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? But this Arab nationalism would not include the Kurds, but it would include the Alawite, the Druze, the Christians, the secular Muslims, and then it would kind of stop there, right?
Yeah, well, that was the official line of the regime. In reality, power was concentrated in the hands of the Alawites. It was basically a minority regime. You could compare it to you could somewhat compare it to apartheid, where you have basically a minority of the population controlling a majority of the people on the country. And this was also the case in Iraq, where it was a minority Sunni regime under Saddam Hussein that ruled over a country that was majority Shiite, at least in the southern part of the country. So yeah, it's very at least the governance is very apartheid-like. Now, the regimes, the regime of Assad officially talked about a united Syria, an Arab nationalist Syria, but in reality, real power rested in the hands of the Alawites. And what's happening right now is that basically the Muslim majority, at least that which is represented by al-Julani, is taking revenge on the Alawites for decades of oppression, basically.
Yeah, when it comes to Arab nationalism, actually, the fall of Assad regime is actually a proof that you cannot keep a united Syria with Arab nationalist ideology. It didn't happen.
No,
and it won't happen. So
no.
then what? Yeah. So then when we look at the map, actually, we are looking at different communities. We don't talk about the Syrian community. Let's put the Kurds and other non-Arab minorities aside. When we look at the Arab ones, actually, they are not a united people.
No, not at all.
Right? So how do you think there is this chance of Syria becoming a nation anytime?
You know what? If it's honestly, I don't see Syria becoming a united nation other than being a united nation under the gun, basically a country that's held together under the gun, like it was under Bashar al-Assad, because a lot of there are a lot of people in Syria who would prefer not to be part of Syria. If you gave them if gave these people a choice, a lot of them would prefer their own countries. Now that's not necessarily true. There are a lot of Syrians who would like a united Syria, but at the same time, the minorities such as the Druze and the Kurds, and I'm sure the Alawites would like, if they're going to be in a united Syria, they would at least like some autonomy. And as far as I know, al-Julani has, also known as, I believe, a Shara. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. He has rejected any talk of decentralization, and that's where he's making a grave mistake. And maybe that's his ideology. But that's a grave mistake, because Syria will not be a united nation, especially if there's no decentralization.
Yeah. So when we look at the map, right? So you have we say minorities. Actually, most of these minorities, they are concentrated geographically. So they are majorities in their own area. They are minority.
Yeah, the Druze pretty much dominate a large part of southern Syria. It's Kurds in the northeast, especially in the extreme northeast, where a lot of Syria's oil wealth lies, and that becomes another.
And the northwest before the Turkish ethnic cleansing.
Actually. Yeah, in the extreme northeast, which is Kurdish dominated, that's where a lot of the Syrian oil wealth comes from. So that becomes another aspect of the issue. Now, there's of course Kurds in the north and the northwest. Although the bulk, as I understand, the bulk of the Kurdish population is in the northeast of Syria.
Also northwest, actually, Afrin region, that's close to
that's true. Yes,
Latakia and Turkish enclave there.
Yeah.
That's also a Kurdish area, except the Turks, when they invaded that part, they have ethnically cleansed the local Kurds.
That's correct.
But here's the thing. So we are talking about a Alawite region on the coast, a Druze region in the south, a Kurdish region in the north, northwest, and northeast. And in the center, you have the line between Damascus and Aleppo. And traditionally, Aleppo and Damascus are two different civilization centers. Okay, they have
Yeah.
been mapped together, but Aleppo would be a center of its own, and Damascus would be a different center of its own. And then you have Hama and Homs in between.
Yeah.
But then the rest of the Arabs, so let's separate the Aleppo and Damascus. Damascus is the capital, but
Yeah.
Aleppo has always been a super important city
That's
there,
right. Yeah.
historically.
Absolutely.
So the rest of the Arabs, they're actually of Badawi origin. So when we even talk about the Sunni Muslim Arabs, we don't actually talk about the same demography either. There are different lifestyles. In Aleppo and Damascus, you have urban people, civilized, secular, but then you move to east, they're not necessarily urban or secular.
No.
So how is this country going to function if we are talking about the mismatches?
Well, again, I think the only way this country is going to continue functioning is by force of arms. Honestly, I think it's not going to be any different than under Assad. It's basically it's the same dance in a different tune. It's basically just another dictator that's going to keep the country united by force of arms. Although I will say, to be fair, that the West does not want Syria disintegrating. The West always has a they always try to keep countries together, even if they are not meant to be together. That's why they never separated Iraq, which by all accounts should have been partitioned. You have to remember the West hated these boundaries.
Correct. Yeah. So when I look at the map, now I'm coming to the Kurds, right? We Kurds, on the people level, right? I think there's a more sincere sympathy from the Jews to the Kurds than from the Kurds to the Jews. There are historical regions. There's zero enmity, zero negative feeling from the Kurds to the Jews. Quite the opposite. Kurds feel that the Jewish people, not only in Israel but globally, are very friendly towards the Kurds, and they can't put a real meaning to it. But they appreciate it. They receive it. But the Jewish sympathy for the Kurds is a more informed sympathy. The Jewish people connect with the Kurds. At least this is my observation, right?
Well, I think we have the Kurds and the Jews have one major commonality in that we're both minorities in the Middle East struggling for independence. Now, fortunately for us, Jews have their independence now, and we're fighting to keep and maintain it. Tragically, the Kurds do not have independence, but many of them would like independence, an independent and united Kurdistan, which I support 100%. And I think that creates, I think, a commonality. The other thing is that the Kurds and the Jews share common enemies in the form of the former Assad regime in Syria, Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and now since Erdogan came to power in Turkey, we sort of have a common enemy there as well.
Yeah, so that's the topic I want to discuss. Like at the people's level, yes, there is sympathy from both peoples. I would say more informed from the Jewish side. But when you come to the political level, Israel is a hard-earned reward, not reward. Israel is very precious for the Jewish people.
Absolutely.
Like people talk about Israel defending itself aggressively today, but right before the foundation of Israel, the Jewish people were not in any good spot anywhere in the world, right? So Israel is really precious for the Jewish people. They have to protect it because there's nowhere else to go. And I'll be very doubtful if Israel was to fall, if the Jewish people would be safe anywhere in the world, especially looking at the news, etc. So that I totally understand. So Israel has to make decisions for Israel. That's for all the Jews.
Absolutely. And
right?
My opinion, when the Syrian civil war was going on and Assad was using chemical weapons against his own people, I very much wanted Israel to intervene and stop this and stop the slaughtering. But Israel couldn't do that because it would be against their interests, and they would be basically getting themselves involved in a very major security threat, facing
Correct.
war with Syria and whoever supported them. So Israel didn't intervene really in that, because of that, Israel didn't intervene. And as much as it would have been the moral thing to do, in the world of realpolitik, Israel really couldn't interfere there.
Yes. So when it comes to Kurds, I'm also writing my op-eds, a few of them at Jerusalem Post. I'm very much in favor of an Israeli-Kurdish alliance. There is the Jewish Agency, the State of Israel. Kurdish Agency is not there yet. We have fractured Kurdish political entities. The closest one to Israel is ANES, the northeast Syria, led by YPG and PYD.
Yeah.
They are traditionally from a leftist background. They were pro-Palestine with their origin, and they fought alongside the Palestinians in the 70s when they were leftist against Israel. Obviously, they regret it. It's a fact. They don't deny it, but they don't own that. They're changing, and I know there has been diplomatic talks between them and Israel. The Kurds attempt that, but I see a hesitancy from Israel to extend their arms politically or militarily to the Kurds to support them with more tangible means.
Yeah, no, I really wish Israel would support them with more tangible means, and especially in the Middle East now, Israel needs all the allies it can get, and historically, the Kurds have been very good allies with Israel, and so I would always hope that Israel will want to strengthen that alliance. Unfortunately, Israel is militarily right now. We're basically fighting on several fronts now, and I think there's the possibility that some in the Israeli leadership are a little apprehensive, and this is just pure speculation on my part. Some might be a little apprehensive about making further out efforts to help the Kurds in Syria, because they don't want, first of all, they don't want a direct conflict with Turkey. And the other thing is that the US doesn't want Israel and Turkey coming into direct conflicts, because in the mind of President Trump particularly, it would contravene American interests.
Yeah. So when it comes to this Syria landscape vis-a-vis the Kurds and Israel, the other part is Turkey. Turkey has made it clear that, well, Turkey is a racist state.
Yes,
let me say that. Like every time I hear people commenting that Israel is an apartheid state, I'm like, do you see Turkey? Like Kurds are not recognized. Like officially, the Turkish state TV that broadcasts in Kurdish officially is broadcasting in an unknown language. Because in Turkey, Kurds do not exist. Nil.
No. Mountain Turks, they call them, right?
Yes, but like it is at the level to say that there are no Kurds. The Turkish president before Tayyip Erdogan, he was on his way to Argentina when they asked him why Turkey intervened in Kazakhstan for the Kurdish children there to have their education in Kurdish. He said it would be a Turkish internal matter even if it's in Argentine about Kurds.
Yeah.
So, like the level of racism is unbelievable that people don't talk about it. It's real politics. I understand they need Turkey for this and that reason. But hey, Turkey is not only racist for the Kurds that are Turkish citizens.
Yep.
Turkey is racist against any Kurd anywhere in the world, including Syria. So, Turkey has made it very clear. Turkey doesn't want any political entity of Kurds in Syria. But Turkey wants more in Syria. Turkey wants to go to Damascus, and Turkey wants to have all these Arab people behind this Islamic flag.
Yeah, Turkey wants the Ottoman Empire back, basically.
And Turkey unites in their own rhetoric. Turkey unites Muslims against Israel. So
Yeah, that's what they're
they
trying.
want to
That's what they're
conquer
trying to do.
Jerusalem once again.
Yep, that's absolutely true. And I hope the irony is, they're trying to, Erdogan is trying to unite Sunni Muslims under one flag, as the Ottoman Empire was, more than over a century ago. The Arab Muslim states would be wise to remember the oppression that they suffered under Ottoman rule, and how hard they fought to gain their independence. And I could also say that I think it's very unfortunate. The agenda right now in the world, especially unfortunately the mass media, is so-called Jews in Israel oppressing the Palestinians. But nobody talks about the Muslim Uyghurs in China, or the Kurds in southeast Turkey, or any part of the Middle East
Region,
or
yes.
just say the Rohingya in Burma, for example. You know why? If it was Jews oppressing those people, the media would talk about it. There'd be demonstrations all over the streets, but no Jews, no news. If it's everybody,
Correct.
yeah, that's a saying that a lot of people use. No Jews, no news. If it's not Jews if you can't claim Jews are doing the oppressing, then it's not news.
Correct. Like the Kurds, my people being the
Yeah.
most important example. Like Kurds have been massacred by the Turks, by the Persians, by the Arabs in both Iraq and Syria many times in the last century, but it was never even an issue with the Islamic what was it, IOC, Islamic Organization Conference? What
The
was
Islamic, or I can't remember the
Organization for Islamic Conference, maybe OIC?
Islamic,
Not
possibly
even
Organization
once the
Islamic,
Kurds
yeah.
were discussed. Kurds are not represented in that organization, even though almost like 95% of the Kurds are Muslim.
Yes.
So you can, if a Muslim can kill a Muslim, there's no issue about that, but the Jews cannot. even if it's self-defense. Oh, the hypocrisy is there. But I'd like to come back and finalize my final question to you. So Israel is very hesitant to directly engage with the Kurds, despite everything. But the Turks are not. Israel knows there is a confrontation that's in the making in Syria between the Turks and Israel. They wanted to install their S-400 system in Palmyra. It was almost a last-minute intervention from Israel. S-400 is against F-35s. That's what it was built for, right? And if Turkey is going there to stop Israel to do anything in Syria, but that wouldn't be too late if the Turks were somehow managed to, because here, let me put it like that. The Turkish tactical approach to their strategy map is to wait for the right opportune moment when the enemy is busy elsewhere, and then put a foothold, and then widen it, and then widen it, and then widen it.
Yeah.
So this is the Turkish way. And they're trying to do the same thing. Even though Israel is paranoid, there's going to be a time when Israel will have to be busy with something else. Then it's going to be too late, right? It's going to be a fait accompli. The way to prevent it, the way I see it, is Israel has to engage directly with the Kurds, not the way it engages with the Druze, because the Druze, I don't see them possibly developing an agency of their own that will engage meaningfully with Israel. But the Kurds can. But the Kurds, they need a midwife, if you will. Why is Israel hesitant?
I think, like I said, I think they're apprehensive about direct conflict with Turkey, and I think they're probably under pressure from the U.S. not to engage more with the Kurds, because that would rattle Turkey. And in fact, President Trump has actually made some pretty positive comments about Turkish President Erdogan that really shouldn't be made, because honestly, I don't see anything positive about Erdogan, because I think he's honestly a wannabe genocidal maniac who wants to annihilate Israel as much as he wants to annihilate the Kurds.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the last one. Have you watched the daily? What was it? Daily Motion, I think. No, I will not remember the name. There's a British news outlet, and then the other is BBC. One was talking about the Turkish bases, 136 of them in North Iraq, and the other was talking about the Turkish invasion in North Syria. They were both from British origin, and British has interest. Why? Because the BP investment in Azerbaijan that flows the oil to Israel,
Yeah.
Turkey blocks the access to Israel. And if Turkey was to gain more direct land in Syria, controlling the straits to Black Sea, that puts their investment in a difficult position. And I see that the British, they don't want the Turks in Iraq or in Syria anymore. So if I'm reading it correctly, Israel is allowing a non-regional power to come and help the Kurds against the Turks instead of taking the action directly itself.
Well, yeah, I really, I just, and this is just my opinion, I would like to see greater engagement, direct engagement between Israel and the Kurds. And I think, you know what, somebody's going to be upset with us whether we give more help to the Kurds or not. So honestly, I would like to see Israel help the Kurds more and establish more of a more direct support. And I think if they're not going to intervene directly like they do with the Druze, I think they should at least help the Kurds with intelligence, with military arms. And I'll go on record saying that they should give military arms to the Kurds in northeast Syria, and even in northern Iraq, because and I think that might have been done in the past too. So wouldn't be the first time, although I'm not entirely sure. But I think we both agree that Israel should engage more directly with the Kurds, and I would like Israel to react as forcefully with the Kurd in defense of the Kurds as they do in defense of the Druze. I would love to see that. Unfortunately, I don't know if Israel is going to take that approach again for the reasons I mentioned, that they don't want direct confrontation with Turkey, and the U.S. doesn't want that happening.
Yeah, I think I also think it's the U.S. Limiting Israel to Israel, not allowing it to spread wider into the region. But I would say that the foundation of Israel, the airplanes that came from the Czech Republic at the time, right? I think were there 48 or 52 of them? I can't remember the number, but it was thanks to those airplanes and the pilots that trained them before the foundation of Israel that allowed Israel to be, right? So
yes, absolutely.
And up until 60s, there was no support for Israel. It was a pure Jewish organization, the state.
That's right. No, we had no allies in the late 1940s, and up to the mid 1950s. The only ally we really had was France, and that only started during the Suez Canal crisis in the 1956. And we just we were in very dire straits in the late 1940s, early 50s, because we had no allies at that time. And you mentioned the Czech Republic at the time. Czechoslovakia were one of the few countries willing to sell us military equipment that we needed to win the first Arab-Israeli war.
So what I'm saying is, those surface-to-air missiles and anti-tank weapons are what the Kurds need against the Turks. If the Kurds could protect themselves against the drones and the Turkish airplanes, helicopters, and the Turkish tanks, I don't think the Turks would dare attack them. So, and there are always means to supply these to your friends, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Jason, thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, hope to read you more often and hope to have you again on this channel.
Okay, thank you very much.
Have a good one.